Hello. Welcome to the Rise Creating Your Voice. I am Judah Bernard with the Rise Creating Your Voice podcast. I am the wisdom dialoguer and the motivational warrior and the dialogue coach. And we are here to talk about wants, needs, and desires. We want to welcome our special guest, Stephen Martin, as the co host of this show today. And he is I'll Sleep When I'm Dead
That's
here
right.
on Instagram Live. We're on Podbean Live, and I know we had some homework to do. I hope everyone did their homework too as well. So we want to definitely talk about what is your happiness about the homework that you had to do. So raise your hand if you did your homework. So I'm gonna start off with mine. Actually, I learned that number one thing is happiness changes with the weather. So only thing you can have, God gives you joy. So in getting that joy, that's consistent across the board. So since we talked about the topic of happiness, I want to say yes, I did lose my happiness today around 2:30. And I talked to someone and it was like hey, something is happening, this, that, and third. And I was looking like, okay, I have no control over it, but it made me feel some type of way. And I was looking like, well, why are you doing this? And so I was like, well, it took me to a place like, okay, I think I know you better to be doing better. But then again, you still have choices and I have no control. But I regained that happiness back immediately after that call because basically I was like, I can't do anything about it. Really can't do anything about it. So it's been a very peaceful weekend for me, and I was just blessed to have a peaceful weekend and just retain joy and happiness. What about you, Stephen?
Well, I realized I'm an angry person. I I didn't expect to spend so much time. It's like with the swear jar where you don't realize how much you start swearing until you start
Right.
dishing dollars. It's I didn't realize how much I get irritated throughout the day about a variety of things, both serious and trivial, and then just let it all accumulate and pack on by the end of the day. So at the end of every day, like I have a variety of things that I've built up tensions or frustrations about instead of letting go. So it halfway through the week made me reassess what I'm letting bother me. So I kept doing my homework, but I also started acting on what I was realizing because of the homework. And the long story short was it was things as simple as like the yard workers doing yard work at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning
Hmm.
and doing it right outside of my door, and that waking me up and frustrating me because I had just decided I was going to sleep in that morning, and there was the one morning I wanted to sleep in, can't do it, yard work, construction, blah, blah, blah. And then things that were more dramatic, work related, let's say that involved a customer trying to make their mistake my fault, let's say. And the frustrations behind realizing like there's nothing that was in my control when it came to making the choice for that person. I didn't have the choice to make for them to make the right or wrong decision, let alone the choice after the fact to try and save face and make it my fault. Uh, so it's a variety of things throughout the day that we can get irritated by. I was getting irritated by driving in traffic and getting cut off by other drivers or people not using their turn signal and then slamming on their brakes and making a hard right. There's so many different things throughout the day that made me suspect that maybe, just maybe, I'm spending a little bit too much energy each day being upset. And that was frustrating to find out that like a legitimate big chunk of my life consists of me caring about too much stuff. And for somebody who claims to only care about what's important, I realized after thinking about it and writing it down, I care about a lot of not so important stuff, and then I let it get to me.
Wow. But that gave us a time to notice how our feelings fluctuate and how our happiness fluctuate too as well. And just like we learned in Sunday school, happiness, it changes like the weather. So are you really happy or is you going to be sometimes moody? So that's different. I noticed James Curtis Sims came on. Did you have something to say about your homework?
I did not do it, but after y'all talk, I guess I'm life itself is homework.
Yes, it
I
is.
I I found myself after Sunday school and things that was happening. I found myself looking at what I do and how I do it, and learning that happiness is changeable, but joy is certain.
Mhm.
And I learned how to allow things that I can't do nothing about just be there because ain't nothing I can do about it. I've learned how to accept those things and surrender to them. So that in itself has been basically my life homework. So I I've been doing my homework and not even knowing I was doing my homework.
That is always great. So if anybody else have anything, definitely come on online. We're gonna try to give about 10 minutes of everybody just if you did your homework, if you didn't do it, or what are you feeling at this moment? Because the thing is, what we want to understand that we have control over our feelings. And our feelings, they're valid, but then again, you don't have to be angry all the time. And like Steven said, hey, he noticed he was angry about a lot of things. So you can just definitely come on or drop us in the chat. How was your homework? How was your homework? And we want to welcome and thank you for joining in. Some of the housekeeping rules is don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We are here every Tuesday night, same time. Our last show for season 5 will be March 29th, 2022. Don't forget to use the heart features, and we will love interaction. So ask to come up to be a speaker in the session so you can speak. But then again, we can take comments in the chat box too as well. So anybody else had experiences and what you noticed about what went on last week with the happiness part and things like that? Well, we're definitely gonna move forward with our wants, needs, and desires. What a topic. Stephen, you want to open up with this one or you want me to move forward?
I'll let you start this one today.
I think what we have to definitely think about is what is a want, what is a need, versus what is a desire. And one thing is, as I was looking the information up, it's a want is something that you desire and something that an individual does not possess yet. Unlike a need, which is mandatory for existence, such as in the case of oxygen, water, or food, wants are not mandatory for the existence. A desire is a more intense craving that a person has for something or someone. The main difference is that while a desire is stronger in an intense feeling, this is comparatively less in the case of a want. So, in saying that, how many wants, how many needs, how many desires do we all desire? I don't see my love heart. Okay, it's up there, Dad. Yeah, it's here. I can see it. So I think the important thing is we have to understand what is needs versus wants versus desire. And I think the important thing is what do you need? Not what do you want or what do you desire. It's good to have wants and desires, but what do you actually need? How's that topic? Anyway.
Well, to tag on that, I mean, I've spent one of our very first conversations really elaborating on what's most important to me and what defines what my values are in life and so on and so forth. But one of the first things I touched base on was how important it was for me to have the basics, and that was a roof over my head, food in the fridge, and my loved ones and myself in good health as best as we can manage.
Mhm.
And as far as needs are concerned, if you really break it down to its most basic elements, the easiest way to think about it is if your human body could not survive both mentally or physically without it, then it's something you need. So water, perfect example. 80+% of our body is comprised of water. So we need water in our diets in order to live well. We actually, as most people are considered, we don't drink enough half the time. The other thing to consider is sustenance, food, and not just junk food or whatever you can get your hands on. Legitimate, good, healthy food that's meant to build up energy, nutrition, and value in your overall health. The other thing is companionship. A big part of why in the incarceration system solitary is utilized as imprisonment punishment, even though you're already in prison, it's a punishment within a punishment. The reason they utilize that is because it is against human nature to remain in solidarity. I know a lot of people as introverts might encourage or like the idea of being alone, but to truly be alone and not have the existence or presence of any other human being around you, or even worse, to have that presence and be ignored, that is a huge compromising aspect of the human psyche. And it's a big part of why a lot of homeless people experience psychological issues after homelessness for a couple months or a couple of years. They come to find that many people choose to look away or not in their general direction in order to utilize that as an avoidance or divergent from having to donate money or offer good words or a smile or even acknowledgement. And what it comes down to for all of us in its most basic forms is we need water, we need food, we need rest, and we need companionship. And that's a big part of what makes us human beings is that we do not need solidarity. We need the polar opposite, whether it's in a partner, friends, family, or just overall humanity in general. If we feel that we are ultimately alone, it can be damning to the spirit and to the psyche all in one.
And I think that is so true. And I think one thing we need to understand that usually when we need, there's a part of you that feels most likely that something is needed in your chest, in your stomach. And sometimes you can, feel it, taste it, see it, because the practice of it that we know that if our body is depleted or dehydrated, it's going to need that water. It's going to need that different things like oxygen. You're going to need food in order to survive too, as well. So, and it's talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs too, as well, and that's like shelter too, as well. And shelter is a good thing that is a need. So you can be covered and being able to be protected in your own environment. Some of the wants, because I think people get wants, needs, and desires mixed up. Let's bring that into a relationship status as far as people wants and needs. And what I want to definitely bring up is, do you want a relationship, or do you need a relationship, or do you desire a relationship? Stephen?
Uh, that's a loaded. That's a loaded question. I mean, I'll put it to you like this. I don't have the most orthodox of relationships as is me personally. But something I've come to realize that is if all those three variables or factors that you just mentioned don't all inclusively become a part of the same experience, then you're doing it wrong. So in layman's terms, if you don't feel all three of those things by the time you're in the mix with this particular person, whoever they may be, then you're doing it wrong. Then something's not right. Because ultimately, if you want a relationship or you want permanence or you want monogamy or you want whatever the terminology might be for you with one singular or other person, then the thing to consider is that all those things are applicable to the person that you want to spend that time with. You want them, you want to need them, and you want to, desire them all the same because it's all inclusive into loving and caring about a person. And just like anything else in life, you know, you can have a glass of milk and that can be healthy, but you can have 10 gallons of milk and get really sick. So
Right.
everything else in moderation. You have to consider the moderation of desire, the moderation of want, and the moderation of need. And there are some aspects in relationships where I have needed more than I have wanted, or I have wanted more than I have needed. And it is important to find a balance despite, the offset. So again, in layman's terms, if you don't have all three of those things, want, need, and desire for the person that you're pursuing or that you're currently with or that you've been with, then it's time to do some work. And if that work doesn't pan out, then it's time to move on.
And the thing is, it said it's better to be wanted or needed in a relationship. We have to understand that a relationship should always be a choice that both partners make. If one person becomes too dependent on the other, like I need you, because you have some people that say I need you, and that's all they want. They need you. Then it can make the relationship turn a little toxic. And the thing is, we still have to understand that has to be that balance because if we desire, need, and want, a healthy relationship can be a great partnership between two people who are able to fulfill their own basic needs and stand on their own two feet with or without a partner. You shouldn't need a partner to feel complete. Let me repeat that. You shouldn't need a partner to feel complete. In that sense, it is far better to be wanted and have your partner choose you day after day. So we still have to understand what that means. That fill those basic needs. And what that means is whatever you have to do to move forward and what you know that you need, move forward. How do you balance the three, Stephen? How do you balance the three wants, needs, and desires?
I mean, the reason these are loaded questions is because you could go off and explaining the same thing 10 different
Yeah.
ways. But I guess the shortest way to explain it is this: every relationship is different. And just like when we last discussed going with your gut and knowing what your body and your mind are telling you, because your body and your mind will normally tell you what you want and what you need, that allows you to figure that balance. So there might be some relationships where, let's say, the female role is the lead breadwinner of the family, let's say, and the husband is a lot more reliant on the wife for financial support in the relationship than she is of him. That can be unsettling to a lot of males, both inside and outside of that perspective, because that's not the cultural norm in a lot of cultures, including our own. But the balance behind that is recognizing that those social norms don't necessarily define or identify you as a person in your particular relationship with another. If you see that you have a particular partner, let's say in this female role, who is willing to help, is willing to put in the work, and understands that you might not be in the same position to do the same, but is willing to be loving, supporting, and caring until you can get to that position or even better. That's the kind of balance you want, is recognizing that there might be an offset, but there is someone willing to work with you in the progression process. You're never going to come into any relationship ever, whether it's a friendship, a business relationship, or a relationship. You're never going to come into any of these things in a perfect coexistence. There's going to need to be some collaboration. There's going to need to be some effort, and there's going to need to be some work in order to grow and develop into a better version of what that could be, both individually and as you coexist. And it's important that people recognize, just like you said, like, you can't need a relationship to the point where if you're at a loss and you don't have it, you yourself are at a loss. You need a relationship in the sense where it's something which you truly care for and you value because it has that tangible value in your life. And that's the problem about balancing the three, is that you yourself are going to have to feel it out and decide what is healthy and what is unhealthy. And the best way to do that is open your mouth and talk to your partner with words. Use your head, obviously, think before you speak, but at the same time, we're not a species that can read minds yet. Okay, we don't got dolphin clicking, we don't got whale sounds. All we got is the words that come out of our mouth and what we hear. Now, what you choose to hear and how you translate it is entirely up to you. But it's important to recognize, when opening up the lines for communication, that in some instances, even in the perfect weather conditions, there might be some interference. So for most people in any form of any relationship, whether it's a friendship, a relationship, a job, normally what ends up resolving the issue is crystal clear communication. Just talking, just expressing yourself in a healthy way, not exuberating any, you know, aggression or anger or frustration, doing your best to talk and leave it a two-way street. Because at the end of the day, people want to be heard just as much as they care about listening. And if anything, people want to be heard more than they want to listen. So it's important that you realize talking is important, but I think what's even more important half the time after that is when you're done talking or before you start, be quiet and listen. I
I
know it's some
love that.
backwards advice, talk and be quiet, but like they're hand in hand, I swear.
But coaching online does discuss wants, needs, and non negotiables. So we have to understand that non negotiables are basic requirements that must be met for the relationship to be healthy and successful. All needs are non negotiable since they are essential for us to thrive both in life and in relationships. A want can also be non negotiable. Wants are much more subjective than needs. Something that is unacceptable to you may not be a problem for the next person. For example, and we love to give examples, if you are a vegan activist, being vegan may be a non negotiable you look for in a partner. Or if you're a strong political affiliation, you probably want to plan a life together with a person from the opposing party. So if you're single, it's a good idea to get a clear on what your needs and wants are before entering a relationship. Let me repeat that. If you are single, it's a good idea to get clear on what your needs and wants are before entering a relationship. Once you've identified them, decide which of the wants are non negotiable for you. But don't be too restrictive, since having too many deal breakers can limit your chances of finding a partner or even drive away a suitable match. Even if you're already in a long term relationship, you can still do this exercise. If you feel like you are not having your needs met, it may be helpful to make a list of your own non negotiables and discuss them with your partner. So, this is like, even if you're in a long relationship or if you've been in a relationship a long time and you feel like some of your needs are not being met or some of the things you want or desire. I agree with Stephen. It's all about communication. And if you can't communicate, one thing that I like to do is write them down and then share the notepad. So then you have time to do 15 minutes of looking at whoever, like if you took pick a column for wants, a column for needs, and a column for desires, and just write down what you feel in those columns and actually have your partner there with you and they write down their wants, needs, and desires. Most of the time, probably if you've been long term for a minute, you probably have the same needs and desires. You just haven't communicated them. So that's the important part of writing down because I know we sometimes cannot express out what we need or want or desire. So I always use the technique of writing them down because they become more visual and they give an aspect of, hey, these are written down. So it's written in stone, some of the things that were already on your mind. Any questions? Any comments? We're going to go to a small commercial break. Thank you guys for listening. All right, we are back. We are back. Thank you for joining back in. We talking about wants, needs, and desires. And we do have some other questions in the chat. If you have some questions, please go ahead and drop them. This is question time for our live studio audience, our co-hosts and speakers that's on the line. One question is, and are you ready, Stephen? What happens when you compare your relationships to others? And I want to go ahead and open up with that one if you want me to.
Yeah, sure.
What happens when you compare your relationship to others? Because basically, that's what you're doing. You're comparing your relationship to others. You shouldn't do that because we are all individuals. We were all born different. So understand when you compare your relationship to others, that means you're ending up to something that's probably not going to be productive because somebody is looking to have the same thing as somebody else, and you don't know the condition of their love and you don't know the condition of their relationship. So always remember there's a condition when things happen. And until you actually know that couple, and you probably still wouldn't know that couple if they're your best friends and things like that too as well, because you don't know the conditions in which they are living their lives either. Stephen?
I don't disagree. But the reason I can't wholly agree is because it's a double-edged sword, that piece of advice. The biggest reason I think is because it's equally as important to recognize how unique and individualized we are as human beings, but it's also equally as important to recognize how similar we are as well. And the reason I say that is because if you are no longer in a relationship, that means that somebody or both parties made a mistake, whether it was in the very beginning, having tried to engage this scenario, in the middle, when things were taking a turn and should have been addressed, or at the end, instead of coming to a resolution, they came to an end. So, in a lot of cases, it's within most people's interests to consider each relationship in and of itself unique, but equally important to remember what mistakes they have made and other partners they have been with have made in prior relationships so they could do their best to be preventative. So if you recognize that your last girlfriend was yelling at you all the time and telling you you don't listen, well, maybe, just maybe, this time around, take an extra step out of your way to be extra great at listening. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that because this person particularly accused you of something, that that's exactly what you are. A lot of times when people point a finger at you, they got three pointing right back at them, and it's just inflection. But what it comes down to is that if you have an opportunity to better yourself or grow into a better version of yourself, do it. So a big part of that is remembering your past, remembering the mistakes you've made, the suffering you might have undergone, whether it be your responsibility, your fault, or that of somebody's own. But it doesn't change the fact of the matter that comparing them is okay so long as you recognize the importance of singularity, that in fact we are our own individual human beings. So that one person you're comparing another to, they're not the same. They might have similar qualities. Heck, they might even look like each other, but they are not the same person. So, with that being said, you utilize what resources, what information, what experiences and memories you have to make the best plausible steps forward in your life. That's the best you can do. Is you can try and make the best choices based on what experiences, memories, and pains you might have even gone through so that they do not repeat themselves in a negative manner. And that's why I said I agree and I disagree, because it's double-edged to say that you should never compare. I compare plenty of my ex-girlfriends to the current partner I have now. She's phenomenal. She is way better than the majority, if not all, of those partners that I ever had. And it further amplifies the value that I put in her.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a lot to think about. I know,
Yes.
but at the same time, it's important to remember your past, where you came from and who you are, and the people along the way who made it that way. And I think ex-girlfriends and boyfriends, husbands and wives, whatever you might call it, it's all the same. It's all inclusive.
All right, all right. James Curtis, you have anything, no comments on that? What happens when you compare your relationships to others?
I think my girlfriend's
Well,
in the chat too, so she's probably eating this up.
what's her name since you threw her under the bus?
She's
Courtney.
Courtney. She's Courtney. Yeah, everybody,
Hey,
make her feel
Say
Courtney.
welcome.
hello to
She's at the
Courtney.
same time.
Drop a couple of hearts if you like it.
Yeah, echoing everything. I disagree and agree on all surface of the answers both of you all gave. I mean, to be as wise and as young as you are is very enlightening to me. Um, I'm, I was once a non-communicator. I guess you would call me an introvert, and I had to learn how to communicate. And and I used to compare or try to compare, and I found out that you can't do it in a sense of trying to be like that. When in the comparison, you can compare to see by measuring up to make it better or do better than that, then to compare to make it alike. So I say, yeah, you can compare as long as you're trying to betterment,
Yep,
But
exactly.
not trying
I
to be alike.
and I think sometimes when you compare, you kind of subconsciously expect, and then when they tend to act like that person, you kind of shut down. That's been my
True that.
experience.
Yeah, you got to be careful because sometimes you might develop fears or paranoias or
Yes,
anxieties that you
True,
might start inflecting on your partner because you were thinking about it. But
exactly.
that's
true.
the difficult thing, and why I think it's a yes and no answer on my part is because it's a necessary process, trying and testing yourself like that,
True.
because you learn perseverance, you learn confidence in yourself and the relationships that you keep. You develop a better understanding of the people that you put in your life and that you keep around you and the circle that you have. And again, it might sometimes make you overthink, but I think that's what's so beautiful about being humans is that we get the chance to overthink. A lot of species out there, a lot of animals, a lot of insects, a lot of other organisms that are living, they're alive. They don't think beyond the scope of the most immediate plausible scenario. But as human beings, we are both blessed and cursed with the ability to
Mhm.
overthink, to amplify our thought process into a variety of avenues instead of just one street. And that's why it's so beautiful to think this way, is because it allows us the opportunity to think outside the box and grow a little bit. And sometimes we might be afraid, but it's important to be afraid so that when we learn we don't need to be anymore, we recognize the value in that. Once I was afraid, now I am no more. And the next time I'm afraid, I'm going to know that I won't be down the line, because this too shall pass, like everything else in this life.
Mhm.
And it's exciting. I mean, you can't not be excited about it, but that's why it's double edged, is because inevitably by pursuing growth and self betterment, you in turn allow yourself to be exposed to the other probability, and that's bad stuff. A partner
Well,
who's not good for you, who's not healthy for you, who might do things that are not great for you, or even worse, maybe you're the problem and you got to address that. That's
Mm,
harder. That's harder
yeah,
than telling somebody else they got to fix themselves. If it's them, then it's on them. You point some fingers, you carry on your way, you have a sandwich.
right.
But if it's your fault, you can't have a sandwich yet. You got to fix a bunch of stuff first.
You're right.
So it's just the whole rigmarole. But that's why these conversations are important, is because
Yes.
we have the gift of overthinking. And that's exactly
we,
what half of these processes are, allowing ourselves to overthink, collect all those thoughts, and make it inclusively into one, or do our best. And at the end of the day, what more can we do? We're human beings, not gods or superheroes. That's the
Right.
best we
true.
can do.
And that's a segue to God. Definitely, we need God. So we need to discuss spirituality and the abundance of needing a higher power, higher conscious, and also God, Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ. So that need is a must for me.
True.
So, what are your thoughts?
Who, me?
Either or.
Oh, man. Well, I'll put it to you like this. I was born and raised in a religious and spiritual environment. I was born in a Christian environment. I was baptized Lutheran at a very young age. My mother was Catholic. My father was a newfound Christian in his mid 20s, early 30s, and put down a whole life behind and became Seventh Church Adventist. And then, so I had Lutheran, Catholic, and Seventh Church Adventist in my religious options. So one weekend I'd go here, the other weekend I'd go there. And I even had the opportunity to go to private schools because, as an educated brown kid, if you wrote enough essays and you told them about how you needed the help, a lot of these schools would actually help you go to their school for almost for free. So
Mm-hmm.
I took advantage of those opportunities, and I got to go to Catholic school too. I got to study world history. I got to study world religions. I got to study the influence of religion in general. I studied mythology. I studied Judaism, Satanism, Islam. I've studied just about every religion there is. The reason I chose to do this, and the reason I'm answering your question so long winded, is this: I can understand the significance and importance behind having a faith. Because in
Yes.
a lot of instances in which we do not act out of fear, it is faith alone that allows us to take risks that are worth taking. So that's why I've always found it important that as human beings, we find something, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, or any other form of passion or spirit, to find that betterment and that pursuit in ourselves. And the easiest way to go about it is this: in studying all religions, and I'm not saying I'm an expert at all of them, but at least learning enough about the foundation and the basis of all world religions. The one thing that all world religions, even Satanism, believe it or not, share in common is this: the golden rule: treat others as you yourself would like to be treated. And at the end of the day, whether you believe in God or not, whatever life's pursuits have done to your faith, one thing is clear: if you allow yourself to be with the mentality and the mindset that your thought processes and that the way you look at the world is the greatest opportunity or pursuit or perspective, you're dead wrong. Even the smartest human being in the world couldn't possibly fathom or comprehend the entirety of what this life is. We are just a speck of life in one universe out of millions and billions of universes out there. And that's sometimes half the human disposition. We find ourselves a little too significant sometimes, not realizing our time on the timeline of planet Earth and our existence in this universe alone is very minuscule. So
True.
if there's one thing to have faith in, is the fact of the matter that we know nothing. We are little, we are small, and we should have humility in our hearts and born into our bloods. Because at the end of the day, as human beings, and that's why I called myself an average Joe coming onto this show, sometimes the best we can do is all we got. And again, whether you have a faith or not, it's important to recognize that that pursuit is necessary, no matter what avenue you go through.
James Curtis.
Wow. Um, I haven't had the opportunity to study worldwide religion. I've heard of a lot of them, uh, but I do understand and know, believe that we are three parts: body, soul, and spirit. Uh, we have to really feed the three. The
Mm-hmm.
one that we feed the most is the one that will be the strongest. I, I learned that if I feed my spirit the most, it would accommodate the other three. And I found out also if I feed the body the most, two of those gonna be lacking. So I had to learn again how to balance the three by feeding the spiritual more and the others be accommodated.
That makes
Understanding
sense.
also understanding also that living 73 years in this life and seeing people younger and older than me pass away and
Mm-hmm.
not knowing what they and I had to understand and accept the fact that there's another place. So I had the desire to want to understand more spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked for that in the spirit to receive that. And the knowledge of that was the fact of learning how to surrender to the Holy Spirit who is left here to lead and guide us. And I learned that to the point to where other faith, if they talk about it, I could listen to them, but I still have the assurance from spirituality to
Hmm.
stand on firmness that I believe in. I'm not saying I disrespect nobody else's. I don't. But I do learn, I have learned how to surrender to spirit to where I can uh, allow the other two individuals, the body and the soul, to be sufficient.
All right, with wants, needs, and desires. How do you guys feel in the studio audience? This has been very enlightening, being that you have the world religion, then we have people that study either one religion or several religions. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's how you build your faith, and what
Mm.
is your faith in? How are you feeling about your faith? So, what is that want, that need, desire? Do you desire to be in the faith? Do you need to be in the faith, or do you want to be in the faith, which can be interchangeable? Because the desire, meaning that you do desire a higher calling or a higher conscience, or God, Jesus, whatever that person is, Buddha, whoever. But then your need is that you continue to need and want it each day. But your want is that you got to have it. Most of the time, it's a want for me because I want it. 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 I desire it. I know I need it too as well. So all three are interchangeable for me when it comes to having that faith. That knowing that Jesus is the head and not the tail. He moves me. He controls. He's when surrendering, like James talked about, because that's basic. That's basic for me. But then again, I'm the one that likes to feed the spirit too, because I know the spirit is all knowing and it has properties in developing and delivering who I am as a person. But then it allows me to do the will of the spirit too as well. So
Well
I
said.
know we're going to go to that little small meditation break and we're going to come back. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. So let's get ready for our mindfulness appreciation. This is mindful appreciation. All you have to do is notice 5 things in your day that usually go unappreciated. These things can be objects or people. It's up to you. You can use your visual mind to check off 5 that you were unappreciative about throughout today's day. This exercise is simply to give thanks and appreciate the seemingly insignificant things in life. The things that support our existence, but rarely get a second thought amidst our desire for bigger and better things. For example, electricity powers your house. The postman delivers your mail. Your clothes provide you warmth. Your nose let you smell the flowers in the garden. Your ears let you hear the birds in the tree. But do you know how these things or processes came to exist, or how they really work? Have you ever properly acknowledged how these things benefit your life and the lives of others? Have you ever thought about what life might be like without these things? Have you ever stopped to notice their finer, more intricate details? Have you ever sat down and thought about the relationships between these things and how together they play an interconnected role in the functioning of the earth? Once you have identified your five things, make it your duty to find out everything you can about their creation and purpose, to truly appreciate the way in which they support your life. Thinking of those five things, I gave examples of five things. So throughout this week, notice what those five things do to make and support your life. Find out everything you can about their creation and purpose to truly appreciate the way in which they support your life. All right, we're back. We're back. That is a mindfulness exercise. How was that for everyone? Just thinking about five things that you appreciate in life. And what we're going to do for homework is actually look at those five things that you either had visually or you probably wrote them down and actually research them and how they play a part in your life. Stephen,
Yeah, I'm here.
I didn't know. Did you do it?
Oh, and doing the well, yeah. No, the first thing I thought of was myself. And I know that sounds really stuck up, but everything inclusively starts with myself. I incorporate the things in my life that make me happy, so I'm ultimately the reason I'm happy. So I make myself happy. I also make myself upset. That was the first thing I thought. Second thing I thought, because it was right next to me and is right now, is my dog. Even though he annoys the heck out of me sometimes, and when I'm having a hard day, a big part of why I got my dog was because I was going through a really hard time. I'd waited a long time since I'd had a dog, and I knew that just having something to take care of, something that loved me back, and that I could also put my energies, efforts to go on walks every day, it made me happier because it was giving me a purpose in my life. Other things I thought about were my girlfriend. Obviously, when you have a relationship with someone, it has value because you've made it tangible by making it a relationship. But the reason mine's so significant is because I met my girlfriend at a really high point in my life where I was always happy and always good and always wealthy and always really up. And she watched me have a bunch of things happen to me over the last almost 3 years now where I'm not on the up anymore, and I'm doing my best to still stay positive and happy, but I can't always be that way. And to have a supporting character, a supporting role in this thing we called life, who's willing to put in their efforts despite having their own life, their own problems, their own things to think about, and making me happy, it's almost inevitable that she's one of the first people I thought about. The last thing I thought about was family. um, I don't always have the best relationships with everyone in my family, but I think that that's just everyone in general. We're all human beings. We're not the only reason we talk to half of our family or all of our family in most instances is because they're family. And if we were to just meet a lot of these people as strangers, let's say, and they weren't blood, there's a very good chance we wouldn't be friends with all of them. But the reason family is still so important to me is because I see the value in where we started. and where I am independently now, just trying in my pursuit to make myself happy. But ultimately, my pursuit in being happy is putting myself in a position where I don't got to worry about being happy and I can take care of my family and make sure that they're good and they're happy. And if my cousin wants to buy her first house, throw $500,000 at her and be like, here, whatever your budget was, it's now $500,000 more. Go get the house you really want. You know what I mean? Those things will make me happy because even doing little things now for people that I care about make me so happy. So those were the 5 things I thought about inclusively.
And James Curtis, would you want to say two of yours? And then we're going to go ahead and get out of here. But we do have, as you come on, we do have a commercial break that join us every Tuesday. Next topic will be what's your purpose? Next topic here on Tuesday night will be what's your purpose? It will be the same channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and also 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And don't forget, we're on Instagram Live, Sunday Jewels on the Rise, which is Sunday, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, James.
Yes, my first and foremost is spiritual.
Mhm.
I have learned to obtain, surrender, and to really abide in joy in the spirit, and that alters my happiness and keeps me genuine and secure. And the next thing I think is family. I came from a large family, and I have a large family, and I I adore the fact of trying to make sure that we cooperate, understand, and uh, abide with each other. And it takes work, just like Stephen said that even in a relationship, it's gonna take work. It's not gonna just happen just because we want it to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
even though it's sometimes oppressing and sometimes depressing, but the joy of it all is when we have that one good time. It really covers all the other bad times up. But those are the two things, yes.
Nice.
All right, all right. So we definitely have homework for next week. Is let's talk about those 5 things that you wrote down to as well. We're gonna drop them in the chat and also think about them and actually research how they are a part of your life and part of the experience and learn about everything. What about a family? What are that thing you know about the family and what does that bring to life for you? So as we leave here, always remember that Stephen is I'll sleep when I'm dead. On Instagram. And also, Stephen, do you want to leave them words of wisdom before we leave today?
Well, I appreciate you guys listening to my long-winded answers about everything. First and foremost, because I know I'm not very good at condensing things. But
But
I
you did
hope
it.
the very least of what you guys take away from today's understanding is that no matter what you find your happiness in and what your wants, needs, and desires are, ultimately it's going to be on you. Just like
Mhm.
every other end of every other episode we've had, I keep trying to remind you guys that it's your responsibility to take on the actions that are necessary to make these things happen. So if it's focusing more on your spirituality, if it's focusing more on your partner, if it's focusing more on yourself, whatever it might be, you got to start doing your homework and not just the stuff we're assigning you. Life's going to give you a lot more homework than we could ever give you in one day. So it's important that you remember to do your life's homework and don't wait to do it or put it off or not do it at all because you're going to keep wondering why these things aren't changing. That's because you haven't been doing your homework.
And one thing I want to leave is definitely assess your needs, desires, and wants because sometimes we do understand that we want what we want, but we haven't assessed them. So is there really a want? It might be a need and it might be a desire. So definitely assess it and list it to the point where you're able to communicate your actual wants, needs, and desires because that is important. That is important on every aspect. That is important on every aspect. James, you have a final answer?
I guess mine would be happiness is just like the weather, it changes. But joy is definitely definite. So Be happy, but seek to be joyous because it will really control the destiny of you.
All right, as we leave here, we want everybody to be safe and definitely don't forget that all of the podcast events are dropped in on tonight. So you can go back and listen if you go to www.therise.live. That's where the archive files are. And it's a website that's www.therise.live, and I'm putting it in the chat below so people can go to it. And also, you can go right here on the Podbean app too, as well, and actually listen to all recorded messages and all recorded podcasts too, as well. So, as we leave here, we always tell you to do what? Tell a friend, tell a foe, tell your spouse, heck, tell everyone, and we'll see you Sunday on Jews on the Rise. And also, we'll see you next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night and have a great day.
Good night. Peace and blessings.
Good night.